Hi mates, welcome back to Eleganza TV. Today I'll be sharing with you all how I made this elegant Chatsby CDam-inspired dress with an asymmetric neckline and dramatic pleats starting below the waist. If this is something you'll be interested in, do keep on watching to the end and tell me what you think in the comment section. So unfortunately, I didn't show the materials when I started with the video, but you can check the description below. I'll be listing everything that you need for making the dress. So without further ado, let's get started. So for this design, we'll start drafting the pattern. Now I place my pattern paper on fold because one side of the dress has an asymmetric neckline. So on the starting line, I measure 2 inches before taking my necessary measurement, which is going to be for the one side built-up neckline. So after that, I took my necessary measurements, my chest line, my waistline, and then my hip line. On the shoulder line, you're going to take your shoulder divided into 2 and then come down by 1 inch for shoulder slants. So this is how I got my chest line. From the shoulder slant, I came down by 8 inches. Then on that chest line, I'll also be marking my shoulder divided by 2 and then connect a straight line to my shoulder slants. So next, I'll get the midpoint of that line and then I'll mark the points. Then on that same point, I'll come in by 0.5 inch. Then on the chest line, I'll be taking my round bust measurements divided by 4. So this is just to draw out my armhole curve. So the 3 points that I have there, I'll be using my curve driller to connect them together to form the armhole curve. So guys, after doing that, the next thing to do now is to mark the neck wideness. So on the shoulder line, I'll be taking 3.5 inches. Now you can also make use of the standard neck wideness of 3 inches. So after doing that, I connected my shoulder slant to the neck wideness. So after doing that, you can choose to draw a neck curve, but that is totally optional because we're not making use of the neck curve. So I'm just drawing it because this is a normal basic bodice. So after doing that, I'll be imputing all the other measurements. I've already gone ahead to mark my bust. Then on the half length, I'll mark my waist measurement divided by 4. And then I added 1 inch for that. Now I'm not going to be adding a dart on the front, but I'll be adding a dart at the back. So I'm going to use this my front measurement to draft out my back. So that's the reason why I added the 1 inch. So what I did was to connect my original waistline to my bust measurement, and then I also connected the dart allowance to my bust measurements. Okay, so having done that, on my hip line I will be taking quarter of my hip measurement, and then I'll also connect my original waistline together to my hip line and then also the dart allowance. So the reason why I'm connecting the both of them is after drawing out my back pattern, I will take out the dart from the front pattern and then finish up with the front drafting. So the next thing now I did was to extend my shoulder line because the dress has a extended shoulder. So I extended the shoulder to the end of the pattern. Now you're going to determine how long you want it to be. So I want the extension to just be 3 inches. So from where my shoulder line stops, I will mark 3 inches to the extended line. And then after doing that, I place my curve driller like so. From that extended shoulder line, I'll be connecting that to where my armhole stops at the chest line. So guys, having done that, the next thing I want to do now is to trace all the lines to be visible on the other side of the pattern. Like I said, one side is going to be an asymmetrical shape. So I need to trace out the line to appear on the other side and get a whole front pattern. So you guys, after tracing it out, I went ahead to start drawing out the lines to make it visible so you can see everything that I've traced out. So guys, this is your normal basic bodies from your shoulder to your hip line. So the next thing I want to do now is to determine how I want the dress to appear, the part I want to have a full shoulder and the part that I want to be cut out. So I want the full shoulder to be on the right side and the lower shoulder to be on the left side. So on the left side, I will be taking 3 inches, which is going to be for the length of the shoulder. You can make use of whatever you want. You can use 4 inches, but I made use of 3 inches for mine. So this 3 inches is the wideness of the shoulder on the asymmetric part. And then on the right side, which is the full shoulder part, I use my curved ruler to extend the line to the top that has that 2 inches, which is for my built up neckline. So since the center part to my normal shoulder is 3.5 inches, I made the built up neckline to be 3 inches. So guys, I'll go ahead to explain again. As I measured from my center front to my neck wideness is 3.5 inches. Then on the top, I made it to be 3 inches after curving the line to my shoulder, just like you see me doing. So I'll be using my marker to make it visible. So this is how my built up neckline is going to be. So next, after doing that, the point I marked on the other side, which is the left side of the shoulder, I'll be using my curved ruler to connect from the built-up neckline to that shoulder on the left side. So I'm just using my pen to first of all get the curve. So you don't need to make it very deep, except you want it to be deep than this. So what I want to do now is just deepen it because that is the way I want it to be. So from the starting line on the midpoint, I came down by 4 inches and then I'm curving the line to my built up neckline on the right side and then also curve the line to the left side, which is the shoulder part on the left side. So like I said, I want it to be curved, but if you're working, if you want yours to appear exactly as a picture, then you don't need to do this exact curve. Just slant it the first way that I did it before and then that is all. So just be creative with your own style. So guys, on the style that we're working with, there is a draping on the neck area. So what you're going to do is measure 3 inches from the neckline and then you're just going to use your curved ruler to draw a curved line towards the bodice. Okay, guys, you can see how it looks. Now, if you want more pleats, you can make another line to make it two or just make use of just one, okay? So what I'm going to do now is after cutting out my front pattern, I'll place on my back pattern and then after doing that, I will cut open that part to drape. So before cutting the pattern, I'll measure down 7 inches from the waistline. Now this is going to be done on the left side, okay? Then after measuring down 7 inches, I'll use my curved ruler to connect to the hip line on the other side. So guys, I just want to illustrate how the pleat is going to be sewn on your fabric. So on the right side that has the extended shoulder, you're going to measure down 4 or 5 inches from your waistline. And then if you notice that the pleats on that side did not get to the end, so it was just on top, it was sewn on top of the fabric. So when we get to the sewing process, I will show you this more clearly, but I just want to illustrate it so we know what we're working with. So from the center front at the end of the hip line, I measured 3 inches and then I came up by 2 inch or 1.5 inch, anyone you prefer. Then you're going to connect from the points that you marked on the side, connect it to that point that I marked on the left side. It might be confusing, but when we get to the sewing part, I will explain more properly. So I'll go ahead to cut out that line that we have on the hip line. And then after doing that, this is how I'll be sewing the pleats. I'll be sewing on top of that marked line that is on top of the pattern paper on my fabric, okay? So when we get to that sewing part, I will show you how to do it on your fabric. So right now we are done drafting the front pattern. I'll make all the lines that are important visible and then I'll go ahead to start cutting. So guys, like I said, I'm using this front pattern to cut out my back and then I'll slash the line open after I finish cutting. So I'm making use of this brown paper to draw out the back. So first of all, I folded my front pattern into two and then I placed it on top of my brown paper that is also folded into two. So ensure that your pattern paper for the back covers up the whole of the material, like it is the same shape and you'll still able to get your zipper allowance. So guys, this is what I mean. So what I'll be doing next now is to pin my front pattern to my back. So ensure that your zipper allowance is wide enough on your pattern paper. Then go ahead to pin your front pattern on the back. So after doing that, next thing I want to do now is to extend my half length line towards the back pattern on both sides. And then after doing that, I'll be tracing what I have as my front pattern on the brown paper. So guys, after tracing it out, this is what I have it looking like. So I'm just going ahead now to draw my waistline on the back pattern. So the next thing I want to do now is to remove a little bit of excess from the straight line that we have there to draw out my zipper allowance. Okay, so this is going to remove zipper bulge. So what I did was to go in by 0.5 inch on the waistline, and then I extended the line to the top and also to the bottom. So you can use 0.75 or zero point 0.5 inch. So after doing that, from that point now, I will go ahead to measure my zipper allowance. So I'm going to make my zipper allowance to be 1.5 inches. So the same way my zipper allowance is going to be slanted. Having marked my zipper allowance, I labeled it. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to replace back the 0.5 inch I took from the main bodice. So the 0.5 inch, I'll be placing it on the side part of the half length. Now, if you don't replace it back, it's going to make your measurement to be tighter, except you're working with a very stretchy fabric. So having done that, I'll use my marker to connect that to my chest line and then also to my hip line. So I'll just make all the lines visible, and then I'll draw out my and cut out my back pattern. So next, after cutting out the back pattern shape, I will just go ahead now to pin the zipper allowance area. So after pinning, I went ahead to open it up like so that I'll be able to get my asymmetric neckline on the other side of the back. So guys, I just went ahead to place the front pattern on top of the back like this so that I will not get mistaken. And then after doing that, I will draw out the shape of the asymmetric neckline. So do well to pin it properly so the shape will be equal with the back, and then cut out the neckline. So after cutting out the neckline, on the down part, I'll also be cutting out the excess that we have on the down part on the back to make it equal with the front pattern. So next, I went ahead to label the pattern, my back pattern, so I will not get mistaken when I want to cut on my main fabric. So the material I used here is a crepe fabric that doesn't fray as much as other crepe. So I think the inspired dress was made with a scuba fabric. It's a material that doesn't fray when you cut it. So, but I'm not that certain. If you do know the material that was used, please let us know in the comments. So if you want to make your dress, you can find a crepe that doesn't fray, or maybe look for a scuba material. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut my pattern on my fabric. So I placed the pattern just the way it is on my fabric. Then I cut with an ½ inch sewing allowance on all the other side except from the zipper allowance area. So I added ½ inch on the shoulder, the armhole, the side part, and also on the bottom. You can use your sewing allowance of maybe 1 inch, but I just wanted it to be free. I just wanted to sew and let it just fit my body. So that's the reason why I used ½ inch on the side part. Then at this part here, I made a mistake. So guys, if you're making yours, please do well to do this part before you cut on your fabric. So I was supposed to slash that line that I drew on the front first of all, so that when I place on my fabric, I'm going to spread it to have excess to pleat. So at this part now, there's no remedy for it. I'll just work with what I have. So if you want to make yours, ensure that you slash it before you cut on your front, on your fabric. Okay. On my YouTube short, I'll try to make a separate dress so you can see how it looks using the same pattern with the slash and the spreading to give you the finished look of the dress. So how the dress is going to look like if I had done that. So guys, I have no words to explain how hot I was at this part, but nevertheless, let's move on to the sewing. So this is my back part. Now what I want to do first of all is mark out the zipper allowance of 1.5 inch first of all. Like I said, I'm fixing my darts in this back part, okay? So from the shoulder line, I measure down 10 inches, and that is where my dart is going to be starting from. And then I place the two back pattern to be equal, and then I extended the line to the other side. So normally my dart length is supposed to be 12 inches for a normal basic bodice dress, but I just want the dart to get to the end. So I will measure the wideness to be 4 inches and then just rule a straight line to the end of the gown. So having done that, I'll take out my pattern and then fix my dart for both sides of the back. So after sewing the dart, this is what I have it looking like. So the next thing I went ahead to do was to press the dart to make it relaxed. So next, I place the front on top of the back, front side facing each other, and then I'll be joining the shoulder part. So I'll place the shoulder to be equal on both sides, and then I'll pin and sew with 1/2 inch. Then on the other side, I'll also do the same thing. I'll pin and sew with 1/2 inch. So guys, after joining the shoulder, the next thing I want to do now is to join the sides of the gown. So I'm going to place the both sides to be equal, and then I will join with 1/2 inch. Now, if your fabric is very stretchy, you can sew with 1 inch, but just start with 1/2 inch first of all. After sewing, then you can fit it and make your necessary adjustment. So guys, after sewing, this is what I have it looking like. I went ahead to iron it to make it neat. Then the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark my half length line. So next I'll go ahead to measure my half length. On one side I measured from 7 inches to mark my half length, and then on the other side I measured my hip length, which is 9 inch, to get my half length. So I'm just using my straight ruler to ensure that it is equal on both sides. Now you can also measure from your shoulder to get your half length, but this is just accurate for me. So guys, I made a mistake on the front part of the gown, hence the mark that you see on the front of the dress. So after marking the half length, I came down by 6 inches on the off shoulder part. Then I'm just drawing a curved shape towards the other end of the gown. Then I'll also mark the same 6 inches on the other side of the back. Okay, so this is it. Then on the other side that has the full shoulder, I'll come down by 4 inches. So I'll just put a picture of the style on the top here so you can see exactly what we're doing. So guys, I measured what I have at this down part and divide it by 2 to get the middle of the front. Then I measured to the right side, which is the part that has the asymmetric shoulder. I measured 3 inches. Then on that 3-inch point, I came up by 1.5 inch. So I'm going to explain again, so please pay attention. So on the shoulder part, I came down by 4 inches. Then I measured what I have there on the bottom of the gown into 2 to get the middle seam. Then I measured again from that middle seam to the right side by 3 inches, and still on that 3 inches, I came up by 1.5 inch. So then after doing that, I'll be drawing a curved line to meet with the side parts. So guys, this is how it looks when you're done. Now you're also still going to be marking that same line on the back. Okay, the line that we have on the side part, you'll still be marking it on the back. Then next, I'll turn it over to the back and then show you how the back styling is also going to be. So for this back part, I've already pinned my zipper allowance on the inside. Then I'm going to connect the points, the both points I have on the side part together. So after doing that, I remove my pin because I'm going to extend the line to the zipper area. So after sewing my pleats on top of that point is going to be equal. So the next thing I want to do now is to measure what I have there and cut out my pleats fabric. So on the off shoulder part, which is the asymmetric shoulder, the line that you see me mark towards the back and to the zipper area, I'll go ahead to measure that line, and then you also measure the other line as well, which is also on the shoulder part. You measure all around to the zipper area. So after measuring this off shoulder part, I have 33 inches. So I'll just write it down, 33 inches for the off shoulder part, okay? And then I'll measure the other side and note it down as well so I don't get mistaken. So I'll measure the top line as well. I'll measure it all the way through to the back and to the zipper allowance. And then I'll also take note of that. So when I measure it to the end, I have 25 inches. So I'll just take note of that. 25 inches is for the shoulder part. So to get the length of your pleat fabric, you're going to measure on your dress like this. From your half length, you measure to where your gathers is going to start on the shoulder part, which is 21 inches. and then you're going to determine how long you want your gown to be. So I want my gown to be 45 inches from my shoulder. So that means I'm adding an extra of 24 inches for the length. Then add your sewing allowance of maybe 2 inches to fold the bottom. So that is going to be about 26 or 27 inches for the length of the pleats. So you're going to make use of these higher pleats to get the length, okay? As you can see, the pleat is different on both sides. The line that is on the off shoulder part is lower than the other side. So when you're taking this measurement for your pleat fabric, ensure you use the higher waist. So I've gone ahead to cut my pleat fabric like this. So we are starting first with this smaller part, which is the shoulder part that has 25 inches. So when cutting your pleat fabric, you're going to measure whatever you have on one side multiplied by 2. So on one side I have 25 inches, then times 2 is 50 inches. Then I added 2.5 inch for my zipper allowance, and then to hem one side. So then for the length, I made the length to be 30 inches. I made it to be longer so that after sewing, I will just trim the whole length to be equal. So guys, like I said before, I wanted the length to be 27 inches after sewing. So I just decided to cut it longer. Then after I'm done sewing, after fitting it, I'll trim off the excess. So we're going to start sewing the pleats one after the other. So on this shoulder part here, I'll first of all hem one side of the pleat fabric. You're going to hem it inward. Then after doing that, you're going to be pleating it towards the other side. So yes, as you can see, the pleats that we have on this shoulder part is facing the opposite side, like it's facing the other side that has the off shoulder. So I want to first of all pleat it this way, then we'll go ahead to work on the other side. So what you're going to do is just pleat it facing the opposite side. You're going to pleat it, and then when you finish pleating, it should be exactly the measurement, whatever you measured. So for this case, my own is 25 inches that I measured for that part. So after pleating it, I'm going to measure the top to make it 25 inches in total. So guys, I did not use any particular measurements for the pleats, but just ensure that you pleat it evenly. So yes, after pleating it, ensure that your measurement is up to whatever you measure for your own case, okay? So if it's not up to, then just adjust it to make it to be equal. So after doing this now, I will be ironing the pleats. You don't necessarily have to iron it to the very end, just iron it a bit, and then you can go ahead to top stitch the upper part. So guys, if you want your dress to look exactly like the dress that you're working with, there is a bit of design that they did on top of the pleat. So what you can do is cut your fabric into two, like maybe measure down 5 inches or 6 inches, then cut it out from your pleat fabric, and then join it again, top stitch it before you start pleating to get that design. But I don't want to go through all that stress. I just want to make my dress looking like it, but not exactly it. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So after ironing my pleats fabric, I went ahead to pin it back again so that I'll be able to top stitch on it to hold the pleats. So guys, for this other side, I went ahead to cut out my fabric again. Like I said, the fabric that you're going to be cutting, you'll measure whatever you have on where you want to sew your pleat and multiply it by 2. So I have 33 inches after measuring round on the other side, and I did 33 inches times 2 with my sewing allowance of 2.5 inch. Then for the length, I also made use of that same 30 inches. After sewing, I will cut out the excess. Then for this one, I also hemmed the rough edge on one end, and then also I will be pleating opposite the other pleats that I made on the top. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Remember, I said the pleats are facing each other. So this other pleat is still going to be facing the other side. And then again, because of the pleats that we have on top is going to be covering the other one under, you don't necessarily have to start your pleats from the very end. You can give it a little bit of space before you start pleating, but ensure that after you finish pleating to the end, it should be equal with whatever you measure. So in this case, I measured 33 inches for mine. So after pleating to the end, I will make it to be exactly 33 inches. So guys, after doing that, I went ahead to iron the pleats on top only, and then I top stitch it to make it hold. So guys, the next thing we're going to do now is to place the pleats fabric on the gown. So I will open up the gown first of all. So after I open the gown like this, I'll first of all be sewing the pleats fabric to the down line. So this is how it's going to be now. I will place the pleat fabric opposite each other, like the front side facing front side of the gown, and then I will start placing it from my zipper area. So you're going to just pin it on top of the line that you marked, and then you'll be sewing on top of the pleats with 1/2 inch. So if your fabric is the fabric that frays, then you should weave it first before you do this process, or you can still weave it afterwards. So guys, after pinning to the very end, the next thing I'll be doing is to take it over to my sewing machine and top stitch. So guys, after sewing this part, this is what I have it looking like. Now if you turn it to the front side, all you need to do is just iron that top part to make it relaxed. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to sew the pleats on the other side of the line. So I'll turn my pleats opposite each other with the main fabric, and then I'll place the pleated fabric on top of the marked line. So I'll start pinning my pleated fabric from the zipper area towards the end of the marked line. So guys, after doing this, next thing I'll be doing now is to sew on top of the pleated fabric. So guys, after sewing, this is what you're going to get. Now you turn it over to the good side. This is how it's going to look like, okay? And then I'll turn it over to the wrong side to show you how it's also going to look like. So this is how it should be. Now I'll iron it to make it more relaxed on the inside. So guys, at this point, I just want to iron the neckline of the back and also on the front before fixing my zipper. So if your fabric is like a good fabric that doesn't fray at all, then you can leave it like so. Then if you're going to be leaving it, then you'll be trimming out the 1/2 inch allowance on the armhole and also on the neckline, so it can fit very well. So but what I'll be doing is to hem it, because I cut with 1/2 inch sewing allowance, so I'll hem that 1/2 inch inward. So I'll first of all iron the 1/2 inch line and then place my hemming gum inside of it and iron it neatly. So guys, after I finish ironing the neckline, I'll also do the same thing for the armhole area. Now you can choose to bias your neck and your armhole, but I don't want to have stitch running at the front, so I just want it to be looking neat. So that is the way I want it to be, but you can choose to do whatever you like. So having done that, the next thing now to do is to fix your zipper. So first of all, you're going to place the both pleated fabric, which is the line that you have on both sides of this zipper allowance area together. Make sure that they are equal. So after placing both of them together, I'll use my pins to hold it down, and then I'll be sewing from that zipper allowance with 1.5 inch. I'll sew all the way through to the end of the gown. Then I'll be fixing my zipper to the remaining space upwards. So in this case, I'm fixing a normal zipper, but if you have an already made zipper, it will be more better. So after I'm done fixing the zipper, I will trim off the excess that I have on the bottom of the pleated fabric and then fit my dress. So this is how the dress turned out. It actually turned out beautiful, but I realized that the pleats don't flatter my body type. They look great on my mannequin though, maybe because it's smaller. So I'm thinking of switching the pleats to gathers for a better fit. So stay tuned for the updated version on my YouTube shorts or on TikTok. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe and follow for more. See you in the next one.